welcome to the Risk Taker Podcast. I'm your host, Ebens, man. I hope you guys feeling amazing, having an amazing week, having an amazing weekend, man. Listen, each day that God gave you, go bless somebody with your gift, with your skill. Man, I have a colleague of mine, a friend of mine on the podcast, man, and this is gonna be a great episode.
Welcome to the Risk Taker Podcast, made for those who've taken the leap and those who are ready to bet on themselves and chase their dreams.
Mick, how are you feeling today, man?
Hey, like you said, it's another day that was given to us. We are here. I love every day. I don't complain about the weather. I don't complain about the traffic. I'm happy to be here. It's a great day.
Awesome, man. For the audience who doesn't know you, can you tell them who you are, what you do, what you about, and we go from there.
Ebens, you know this. I am the greatest nobody the world has never known. Yeah, I'd say that as a joke, right? But I think it's important to hold that notion in your head, right? Because certainly in the Western world, in this country, there is an idea that you have to be unique, that you have to be somebody, that you have to have a title. And to me, that's never been important. That's never been a consideration. What I've always been interested in is what can I accomplish, what can I do, and what can I leave behind? And that, to answer your question about who I'm an architect by trade. I've been in construction management, project management, owner's representation. I was in the development world, and I'm a realtor as well. So always in this realm of constructing things. And the reason, to be honest, that I was ever attracted to this outside of, kind of initial skill with drawing and interest in drawing, interest in graphics, was long ago. It occurred to me that I like to create. The world is about creation. Right? That's the very first instinct we get.
Yep.
Who created this?
Yes.
What is creation? But I could do so in a way that meant I did not have to possess, which is different. Or, in a better way to say it, I possess the essence of what I've created without possessing the form. I can leave the form for someone else to experience and possess. And so that's really kind of defined my approach as to who I am. I'm not concerned with my name. My name is not on my company, right? It's not about me.
Yep.
It's really about this idea of creation and recycling and leaving things, a legacy for the next generation that is not part of me. It's part of the world. The world doesn't need to know my name, right?
I like what you say is about creating, man, and that's when I think it's in Genesis. I don't know what chapter is it, but in Genesis, that's the first thing God did, create. No, so we have to create. We have to create stuff like you say. But let me ask you this now: what made you want to go after your dream? What made you want to take a risk on your dream, to bet on yourself? What was that thing? No? Did you wake up one morning and say, you know what, man, I think it's time now to live up my dream, to bet on me, to take a risk for myself, for my family? When was that for you? Why?
Why? Most people would call it poor planning. Look, years ago, let's see, this was, I don't know, third, fourth, fifth job I had, like professional job, right?
Yep.
I don't remember exactly, but I had moved. I was working for a small architecture firm. The owner took a bet on himself right? Opened his own small studio. I was working for him. He had done a little bit of development work. And I was attracted to that notion of what he was trying to accomplish. But he had no vision in how to share that.
It's Ebens, host of the Risk Taker podcast, and this episode is sponsored by Oig Apparel. If you've been building, grinding, and betting on yourself, it's time your wardrobe match your mindset. From the bold Risk Taker hoodie to the signature Dream Chaser tee and jogger set, every piece is designed to remind you why you started. Head over to oigapparel.com and use code RISKTAKER to get 20% off of your order. Because when you work in purpose, your clothes should speak before you do. Let's get back to the episode.
And so I had an offer from a development company. And I had a conversation with him. I said, look, I know you cannot meet the salary demands, but I'm interested in this idea. And he didn't know how to respond. So ultimately, I took the job with the development company. Now, I joked about poor planning, but the reality is I knew when I accepted that job that development company was divesting. It was a public REIT. They had a targeted 3-year window to close down operations. And I was assigned a task, but also given an opportunity. And the opportunity was to evaluate strategically portions of the portfolio for redevelopment to maximize sale, right? Because always the difficulty when people know you're going out of business, they think, fire sale, right? Discount. And so how do we maximize the pricing on the sale side? So I love that idea, right? I had gross autonomy and I had a lot of trust placed in me. And those were two very powerful concepts because I liked freedom. I liked autonomy. I liked to be able to prove, right? Yes. But I for personal reasons, which we may or may not get to, I sincerely appreciated the trust placed by the CEO in me. That was a very powerful concept. And so I took that job, and that really, even though it was accepting a job with a company, that really was my first step, right? Because I knew the company was going to go out of business, and I knew then I had to be preparing. So I was using those 3 years as my stepping stone to launch myself. And I did. When the company went out of business, I had a brief period where I launched my first thing. The economy was not very good. So ultimately, that's when I relocated to Washington, D.C., and, worked some other places. But that was my first step, really.
That was the first step. So when you make that, so you already have in your mind, you're going to use this basically as an experience, use this risk as an experience because, you have 3 years. And as you know, and you said the CEO trusts you, that was big. Now, trust go along the way, especially working within an organization. Trust go along the way. And you say you use it as like my wife and I, we always say this. Anything that you want to do in life, you want to open your own business, go get the experience. Now, go get the experience. That's how you're gonna learn it. You can't just wake up one day and say, no, I'm gonna open something and you haven't got the experience.
Yeah.
You got the experience and eventually led you to another opportunity so you could have your own. What was your thought process? What was your thought process through all this throughout your journey? What was your thought process? Because as an entrepreneur, we gotta have our mindset gotta be sharp. Our mindset gotta be clear. We gotta know what we want. Like, what was your thought process, your mindset?
Twofold. You are right. To properly execute, you need to have a vision.
Yeah.
And I forget who said it, but I'm sure you're familiar with the quote, most people overestimate what they can accomplish in a year, underestimate what they can accomplish in 5 years or 10 years, right?
Yep.
And it's true because time, even though it is one of the most significant defining concepts of humanity is something we are so profoundly bad at understanding, right? And so that ability to plan for time and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Part of that was going in and saying, I have 3 years to learn, right? I have 3 years to learn. Number two, I knew from experience, I had worked construction in college. Now I was in the development world. I had worked as an architect. I knew that I wanted to be able to get closer to construction. I wasn't sure what that looked like. And the counterpoint to saying that you have to have a plan, I think there is an aspect of entrepreneurs that sometimes don't have a plan, right? That's the concept of risk, that you have to be willing to say, there are gaps, there are holes. I don't have the answer, but I'm willing to live without that. I have a very, very close friend of mine. He is wildly successful, very secure financially. He's an attorney, corporate attorney. And we were sitting one night chatting, and he looked at me, he said, I could never do what you do. I said, what do you mean? He said, I would be terrified. I need the security of someone telling me there is work to do and that you will have a paycheck to do it. And I have never felt that way. Of course, we want security, but I have never felt as if I could not operate without that security. In fact, that I think would be inhibitive to the process of going out on your own, right? Of entrepreneurship. If you need that security, entrepreneurship is not for you.
Today's episode is brought to you by OWIG Multimedia Audiovisual, trusted by industry leaders for premium audio, visual, and event experiences. Check them out at owigmultimedia.com.
For you, yep. It's not, and I heard people like your friend that's successful, right? I heard people say they want a guarantee. No, they want a guarantee, and this being an entrepreneur, there's no guarantee. It's a risk. That's no guarantee. But even having a job, there's nothing wrong having a job. There's nothing. I'm not knocking that down. Having a job for some people, that is great. That's nothing wrong with having a job, because everybody can't be entrepreneur. Because if everybody entrepreneur, who are you gonna hire to work for your company? No, so. But the risk, like there's no guarantee on that side. On both sides, there's no guarantee, because even though with the paycheck, the business that company could go out of business. No, they could fire you. So there's no guarantee on both sides. But on this side, on the entrepreneurship side, you have a little bit control. Now you have a little bit control on that side. Now let me how. Throughout your journey, because we talk about the mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what was because we could talk about all the success. Now we could talk about all the good stuff. Like, what was one of your biggest failures, and how did you overcome? Because you might have many failures. Because I know I do. I have so many failures, but how did you overcome those failures?
I've had two particular failures. One, the first one, probably the biggest one, and this was a lesson for me. Relationships are critical to how I operate. I personally believe that relationships are critical to how we should, and I hate using the word should, but should work with each other. I have met people that have led to jobs, that have led to opportunities, that have led to pro bono work that I've done, give backs, things that are very interesting for me to have done. And it's always through personal interaction, right?
Yep.
I had I had started my company. I was working on a fairly significant project, $15 million development, taking it through the entitlement process. And the board of directors was composed of three billionaires, people whose name you would recognize. And I had apparently performed significantly enough that those directors took an interest in me personally. One unfortunately passed away, and it was close enough to his time. It was not unexpected, I suppose. He was really a fine man, so that venture never took off. The other gentleman asked me one day if I forget exactly how he phrased it, but something like, would you be interested in doing some development work, or would you be interested in, partnering outside of this? And of course, as you know, equity is one of the largest components of success in launching any endeavor, right?
Yeah.
And going back to the idea of vision, my vision to not be behind a desk, not be solely doing architecture, but to be constructing and giving back, this was a huge component. So it was a quick conversation, 5 minutes maybe, on the side of the road. I had done some work separately for his family foundation. He was impressed with that, and so he asked me, and I said yes. And a little time goes by, and he says, would you have time to come by and talk more about this? I said, absolutely. So I show up, and he says, okay, what's your pitch?
Expecting that.
Now, there was nothing in my training, in my world, that let me know when a billionaire has a 2-minute conversation with you, all that implies. In retrospect, it probably should not have been a surprise that I would show up and I would be ready to pitch him.
Yep.
I had no indication that was what was going to happen. I thought when he said conversation, it was conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was Shark Tank is what it was. And so I kind of stumbled through this grand vision that I had, all of which was entirely true. But you don't start off with the empire, right?
Yep.
And I was trying to give him this idea that I had a 10-year plan. I knew he didn't want to hear all that, right? What he wanted to hear was, I am an investor. I have the equity. You clearly have the expertise. How do we deploy that? How will you deploy it in an effective manner that will return ROI to me in some reasonable time frame on a repeatable basis?
Mm-hmm.
I'm capable of answering that question, but now, so nothing came, right? I don't even know if he said goodbye, to be honest with you. And I realized, conversation over, I failed. That was a massive failure to have that sort of interest and that level of equity at my potential disposal and to have walked away with nothing. Massive failure. But what it taught me was be prepared.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. Take it on. Yep.
Be prepared. You cannot know the specifics, but he didn't want the specifics of a project. Be prepared. Have my 1 year, my 3 year, my 5 year, my 10 year, have it laid out in my head in a succinct fashion that I can give to you, and somebody can say, okay, let's work. And now I am. Now people want to know what I can, okay, here's what I do on this project. Here's what we can do over the next 3 years. Here's what's repeatable, right? I can adjust this so that if you want to work for me, here's how I can return value to you. Here's how we can be successful together. Huge, huge lesson for me.
I'm glad that you went to the and you learned from it, and it make you better. And you got to be prepared. Like you say, you have to, especially in business, because you never know what an opportunity might show up. You have to stay. They always say stay ready. Now
Yeah.
you gotta stay ready because you never know when the opportunity is gonna knock.
Yeah.
When that opportunity knock, you gotta be ready. You gotta be ready. So I'm glad that you don't lesson from it, and you learn from it. Now, some people that's listen to this, hopefully they get something out of that. What is one of your? We talk about the failure now. What one of the things that you're most proud of throughout your entrepreneur journey? Now, what one thing, like you might have many, but what one thing you just sit back and say, you know what? I'm proud that I did that. I'm proud that we did that. I'm glad that I took the risk not having my own business. Like, what can you let me know?
Let's see.
Your greatest investment. No, your greatest investment. No, let's put it that way.
That's a more difficult one for me because, like I said, I don't tend to attach my name or my identity to any of the products. But I think maybe one of my successes is really developing patience. I've never had patience in my life for anything. As my wife can tell you, when I'm trying to fix something around the house, she has to put her earphones on. I have a temper and I have no patience. Um, but over time, over the last 25 years, I have learned to bring the temper down, to dispel, to not worry about things. In fact, I had a conversation with my middle brother a week ago, and he says, I think I'm in between us three brothers. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, our youngest brother is angry all the time about everything. And he says, you never get angry about anything at all. And I said, oh, well, thank you. That's taken some learning. uh, but for me, it's maybe more important than any tangible thing I've created or any particular project I have done, because what it's allowed me to do is build relationships, right? Which is core to how I like to operate anyway. So if I didn't develop that skill, I would be constantly battling myself, battling the future, and battling against success. So that personal growth, that personal development is probably the most significant thing that I've been able to do. And it has, in turn, led to successes. I'm doing a multi-use residential over retail project downtown DC. It's in the historic district, a very complicated project. That project initially went to another architecture firm and came back to me.
Wow.
That firm didn't have the relationships they needed, didn't have the correct approach. And the owner was almost apologetic. I said, it's a path. Everything is a path. So the time was probably 2 years from the first meeting until I secured that job. That level of patience, that level of time investment, that level of relationship building is critical. I have another one. I'm an equity partner on the deal, which hasn't been executed yet. He came back to me. He's got another lot, a huge lot, 60,000 square feet. He wants to do multi-unit development on it, and he's coming to me, right? That the level of trust that we've built up, he's referring me to other clients. So that level of trust in seeing what I can produce, that conversation started 8 or 9 years ago when I first met him with an investment group to purchase property from him. So these things, these conversations, everything you say and do, going back to that idea of being prepared, right? Yeah. That when I show up, when I explain to him our approach, why we are offering the money that we are offering, what we intend to do, being able to talk through development scenarios on the spur, really important. And then not getting upset when it doesn't happen overnight, right? Yeah. It's relationship building. It takes time.
Take time, yeah.
Yeah, it does because, to me, I think it's at the back of everyone's mind, even the most hardened capitalist. Does this person really care?
Yes.
Right? Because if they don't care, then at what point are they going to leave and the project is not successful?
Mm-hmm.
What if they've underbid? Are they going to leave because they're not getting paid enough? Are they going to cut staff? Are they going to cut corners? Right? At what point do they check out on me? And I now am unsecured in any way. So everything, again, to me, relationships. And so learning that patience, learning to control the temper, learning to breathe, to trust, and to have faith that things, if you develop yourself correctly, don't worry about other people, develop yourself, develop your skills, put yourself out there, the right thing will happen. And so far it has. So personal development.
So man, you feel like you speaking to me, man. Like you like seriously, you speaking to me. Now, man, you relationship, the right relationship. No, not the right relationship would open. They always say the right relationship would open doors where money can't.
Yeah.
No, and it doesn't happen overnight. I remember there was an account. Well, when you mentioned the 8 years, there was an account that I was working on, and it took me about 9 years to get that account.
Uh-huh.
Over time, with that decision maker, with the CEO, we always stay in touch. We always either email, either call. We always stay in touch. When that time comes for me to get that account, it was the right time, but it didn't happen overnight. So I'm glad that you mentioned that the relationship and how we met. It's funny how we met. It's funny how we met. We met at a network event in DC,
Uh-huh.
and from there we connected and we stay in touch. That's how we got here. You have to, like you said, you have to care. And also, you gotta be careful. Be careful too, because you don't know the other person's mindset. So that's why I like to have a conversation. Anybody that I met at a network event, have lunch with them just to see, hey, is this person gonna be is this relationship gonna be the right relationship? No, to invest in this relationship, to keep in touch. So you always gotta do your homework. You always gotta do your homework. And you mentioned personal development and patience. Because a couple months ago, I was praying, and I was praying, and I asked God for patience, and God gave me my son. So I have my son. He's about what's 8 years. He's about 8. The level, as you know, having kids, the level of patience that you need to have, man. So I asked God for that. God give me my son. Now, just being patient, just being patient, and understand, in personal development. That's one of my things. Personal development. I love reading books about leadership, about financial, about business, about stuff that could help me, that could help my family, that could help me, that could help my business or make an impact in my community. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. You said something, faith, right? As an entrepreneur, you know, it's not what we see in social media. People posting all the success, all the cars. And sometimes we need to have faith. We need to have faith because there's something that we can't run in a business. That's something that we you might have those days that I can't pay this. I can't, like, there's certain things that I can't do. So where do you connect? Does your faith come from? No, when those times come, because they will come. No, throughout your journey, they will come. No, when it comes to faith, how do you do?
Yeah, look, there are innumerable tests that sometimes you don't even realize it's a test. One of the biggest ones was COVID, right? It's a test for us all. I really thought in the first half of that year, that might be it, right? Maybe I'm done. Maybe this is not going to succeed. It's not robust enough to weather this storm. And I'm going to have to go find a job someplace, right? That was a distressing concept, by the way, to find a job. Yeah, because, as much as people interview you, you should be interviewing them, right?
Yep.
That's a grueling process to have to go through all these companies. And does this company have the right person and the right setup? Can I be successful? And then, even so, am I going to leave again, right? All these things. And I said, okay, just breathe. You cannot control COVID. You cannot control the deployment of resources in an environment where people are afraid. So don't try. I ended up having my best year to that point, followed by my best year, followed by my best year. Coming out of COVID, building, right? And working hard to be responsive, to build. So you never know. But you mentioned Genesis. In English, it says, in the beginning was the Word.
Yep.
In French, it says, au commencement était le verbe.
Yes. Oui.
Not the word, the verb. Literally the action. And it's not because there is no word for word in French. It is intentional because the idea is, in the beginning, the creator creates. It is an action.
Yes.
And so that concept has always stuck with me, that when you want to think about mentors, when you want to think about an example for yourself, if you want to think about God as your example, what is the example? The example is action, not passivity, not to sit back. And patience doesn't mean passivity, right? It doesn't mean to sit back and wait and have someone dictate to me or have it presented to me. It goes back to this idea of work on the self. If I cannot do anything else, if there is no other work to be done, nobody to engage with, right? Who is left? Yeah, yourself,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And back to the idea of humility and not having my name on the door, there is always something that I can improve within myself. And so you clear the distractions and the noise of things that you cannot control, that are not yours, and you trust that they will sort themselves out, and you act within yourself and say, okay, what will I do today to improve myself so that I am ready when the opportunity comes? And that's a difficult concept, but back to that idea of action, it truly is. So when you act, if you try to live, and it's a struggle. I'm not perfect, right?
None of us.
I'm not Jamie Dimon. I'm not, making billions a year. I'm not that level. But just that idea, okay, be active, be participatory in every day, even on slow days. Then you shift and you find something. And sometimes what that something might even be prayer, reflection, meditation, reading, or even, frankly, a nap.
Yep.
Take a nap, right?
Yep.
To hear the wind and be soothed by nature, to take these moments and say, I've been given this, like we started this off with, right? It's a great day. I've been given this. Let me just take 45 minutes to actively engage my environment and be appreciative so that I rise up rested, ready to re-engage.
You say it all, man. You say it all. You say it all, man. What tips or what advice would you give before I said it? I'm gonna because you mentioned mentor, right? You mentioned mentor before I asked you that question. Before mentor, did you have somebody mentor you? Like throughout the day, do you reach out to mentor? Because I know mentorship is the right mentorship is really important in life, not just in business, in life, Gino. Did you have a mentor that you reach out to that you ask advice?
Yeah, that's a great question, and let me answer it in my typically convoluted and complicated way. My father is not what I would call a good man. I haven't spoken to him in 35 years, since I was 18. That was it. Walked out the door. He stole money from me after that point. That presented a huge challenge early in life. So, and people might say, well, that's difficult. You didn't have a mentor, but that's not true. What it taught me was a couple of things. One, my father was highly educated. He didn't work, but he was highly educated, highly intelligent. And it taught me to separate words from actions, but to understand the link between them. And to evaluate each separately, and then to look and to see whether they were linked, so that I would recognize if somebody was telling me something of value but didn't act that way, or if there was a link between the two, or they had nothing to say of value, but they acted with honor and integrity, right? So that was a great teaching point for me. What it also helped me do was, because I didn't have that relationship, I would look for supplemental relationships. So in university, I had a very close relationship with the parish priest at the student parish that endured up until about 2 years ago when he passed away. And he was as fine a human being as I have ever met, who really listened, truly listened for you, as if he were in your head trying to understand, how do I improve, right? How do I become the best Mick that I can be? In California, I had one of the partners of the firm that I was working at. I was a very young man. She was wonderful, really took me under her wing. The CEO, in fact, was very good. I ultimately didn't like the work, so I left. I was with another firm, again, found a mentor at that partner level, right? The development company that I worked for, I knew the CEO personally. And would chat with him, and the trust that he placed in me and how he would listen to my thoughts and encourage me to pursue them was really important. In fact, I came to Washington, D.C. because of somebody I considered a mentor. Ultimately, that job didn't work out because of a number of reasons, but really because the company didn't want to do what they were advertising. And without casting aspersions, I think they tried to some extent and then decided, we can't really accomplish, or we don't really understand how to accomplish this idea, so we'll go back to our traditional roles. And I said, okay, fair enough. That's not for me. But it's interesting, since coming back to Washington, D.C., I really haven't had a mentor. I have had maybe the second failing is not being able to secure a partner. I don't like working alone. I like autonomy, but I don't like working alone. I like a relationship. And in some ways, being alone has been very good, because it encourages me to even further develop the relationship with the client, to bring them into the process, right? So that they have a sense of ownership, and not just, okay, I heard you, now I will do work for you, right? But I started my company with a partner. He and that first partner, ultimately had to leave. His wife had health problems, and so he really had to focus on that and devote his resources to that, which was kind of funny because about a year after I started the company, my wife had severe health problems, was in the hospital for about 4 years. So that stressed resources at a critical time of developing a company, right? Stressed time resources, stressed financial resources. But I was talking to another person with whom I was very close. And he was a little bit older than I was, maybe, I don't know, 7, 8 years older. So not quite a mentor, but a little bit senior, a little bit more experience. And it turned out in a very good lesson for me that as much as he and I both wanted to be partners, our visions didn't align. And there was really no path forward. And so you go through these things, and sometimes again you set it aside. So I don't have a mentor. I haven't for quite some time. And I don't know from where one will come or when he will show up, right? But that person, when they come into my life, I've had them before, and I'm certainly open to the idea because I think it's really important, I think, to have those people who don't have a vested interest in you, but care anyway. Yeah.
That's true. What advice would you give to a seasoned entrepreneur and somebody that want to take a risk, that want to take a risk? What advice or tip would you give them? Because I know we talk about action, we talk about vision. What tip would you give them? What advice would you give them?
I would maybe give the same advice in some ways to both of them. Because it is, I think, ultimately, in order to be successful as an entrepreneur, in order to embrace it, you have to recognize the truth of who you are. And one way to phrase it would be to say, you should evaluate whether you want to be an entrepreneur. No, we're here on the Risk Taker podcast. We've already established it, right? So I think the question is clarity. Distill the things that are important into that elevator pitch, even for yourself, right? Such that if you're questioning, do I launch this? Do I expand? Am I ready? Well, distill. Who are you? What do you want to do? Know those things about yourself. If you're standing here because you really only have one of two choices, either I'm going to do this or I'm going to continue working every day. And that has to be the way you think about it. It can't be like, well, maybe I could. No. You are either going to take the plunge or you are not. And so you just have to say to yourself, you have to be able to say that is the stark choice. And the answer for me is yes, I want to do this. And therefore I am going to go do it. Because when you have the hesitation, then you're thinking like an employee, right? You can't do that. And I think in the same way, for the seasoned entrepreneur, you have to be thinking the same way, because I think in some ways you get conservative, right? Especially in American capitalist culture. We talk about entrepreneurship, but it is not as celebrated. It is not as supported at the institutional and corporate level as it was 100, 150, 200 years ago, right? The idea of the Wild West, of the explorers. Go into a bank. What do they want? Secured collateral? 8.5% interest? Where's your risk? Your risk is zero. So why am I paying a premium when you're giving nothing, right? So I think there has been that migration toward the elimination of risk and securing of the riches. And as a seasoned entrepreneur, it's the same thing. Don't forget who you are. You did this for a reason. Are you ready? Maybe your question changes ever so slightly to not are you ready to begin, but are you ready to continue? Are you ready to get up every day and be active? So if it's taking a chance on this employee that seems like they have the skills to launch your business to further success, hire them. See where it goes, right? Take that chance. Do you have this opportunity to diversify? Take it, right? I personally embrace diversification, right? I'm retailing real estate, development expertise, architecture, right? Build your knowledge base. So whatever the question is on the experienced entrepreneur side, I think it goes back to these same simple concepts, right? Clear the noise. Who am I? Right? Either I am progressing or I'm getting ready to shut down. I'm getting ready to retire, to cash out, whatever it is. If that's the case, then let me be active in planning that. But if that's not the case, if I am still the entrepreneur, then let me be active about that. Let me be active about pursuing that, developing that, and continuing on that path that I started 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, whatever the number is, right? And let me continue to actively engage as the entrepreneur.
There you go. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. There you have it, man. How can people get in touch with you for what you do, for your service? How can people get in touch with you?
They can always just directly Venmo me money. That catches my attention. All donations accepted. They can call me. Know you have my contact, but for everyone else out there, we would love to hear from you and to help you, to work with you, to start to build whatever dreams you have. 714-7171. And of course, you can find us at rathunasllc.com, RATHUNASLLC.com. And, we enjoy people. I enjoy people. So we'd love to hear from anyone out there.
There you go. There you go. And we're going to put all that information in the description. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it, man. And we will see you guys in the next episode.
You've been listening to the Risk Taker Podcast, created for those who bet on themselves and build beyond limits. Make sure to follow us at Risk Taker Podcast. Leave a review and let us know how this episode inspired you. To get in touch, email teams at owigmultimedia.com. Until next time, keep taking the risk and keep chasing your dreams.